North Central Florida, a proposal for a mixed-use residential development could change how people live in Southwest Ocala. TV20's Zelale Solache tells us about the details that has some residents concerned about their neighborhood.
Ted Cole says he moved to El Dorado neighborhood of Ocala for peace and quiet.
My family actually moved here in 2001 because it was a smaller town and we wanted away from the bigger town.
Now he worries about an idea of more than 500 residential units close to his neighborhood.
This is the price of progress, unfortunately, but I do lament it coming right into my backyard.
Dozens of people showed up for a workshop at the College of Central Florida about a proposal on Southwest 42nd Street and Southwest 27th Avenue, across from Trinity Catholic High School. The project would include 480 multifamily units, 48 townhomes, and a medical office park.
For us, this is a nightmare getting ready to happen within a mile and a half, 2 miles of where we live.
Developers say the project is a continuation of this Grand Oaks shopping center that was approved back in 2012. However, residents tell me they worry this project will bring even more traffic congestion to this roadway.
There's a problem with traffic and with the number of units that they plan to build. There's going to be even more traffic.
People I spoke with say there simply is not room. Also top of mind is population impact, the environment, and stormwater runoff.
The flooding, who's going to take care of these lakes? The retention ponds are not working now. We watched 27th Street flood and stay closed for 2-3 weeks at a time because of this.
Developers will gather citizen input and bring it to the City of Ocala Planning and Zoning Board. Zelale Solache, TV 20.